In all the years that I've been watching anime, I have never seen a character quite like Yamato. A character who seemingly comes out of nowhere two-thirds of the way through a major arc in the series and takes the internet by storm overnight. From the instant she was introduced in One Piece chapter 984, Yamato has been a fan favorite among the One Piece anime community, so much so that it is because of Yamato we have had so many new fans starting this series. There are people who picked up One Piece solely for Yamato, a character who was introduced nearly 1,000 chapters in. That is unprecedented, but for all the fanfare that makes around Yamato, there's also a great bit of controversy that is embroiled with her existence, and some of which is kind of valid. So who is Yamato? How does she make such a splash in the One Piece community, and what is this controversy that surrounds her? That is exactly what we're going to be talking about today. So here's the thing with Yamato. Firstly, she comes out of nowhere. At no point was it hinted at, implied, or even referenced that Kaido had an offspring, let alone a son. And here's the kicker. This son isn't a male, this son is a daughter, and this daughter looks up to Kozuki Oden, the very man who her father fought and ultimately killed. Tell me that doesn't read like some sort of fan fiction you would read on Tumblr. And to top it all off, this offspring of Kaido is incredibly powerful. I would say Yamato is easily the second strongest female character in the One Piece verse besides only Big Mom herself. It's really insane and very bold, and it's a testament of Oda's writing ability to bring a character of this magnitude two-thirds of the way through the biggest arc in this series, and she fits in perfectly fine for the most part. Yamato is also a much refreshing approach of one of Oda's favorite tropes to use throughout the series, and that is the princess of the island needing to be helped or saved in some capacity. In Yamato's case, she's not the daughter of royalty here. She is the daughter of the oppressor. She is the daughter of the monster who brought unspeakable ruin to the land of Wano. This is very unique because we've seen what happens on the opposite end of the spectrum. We've seen how the daughters of these royal families have suffered in great ways. Yet that is flipped here with Yamato. We see how she, as the daughter of Kaido, we see how she suffered for so long due to her father's actions, due to her father's reign over this country. Yamato was basically alone for her entire life. She was never allowed to be for others. She was never allowed to see what lay beyond just the island of Onigashima. That is a level of despair that would drive most people insane. I think that the introduction of Yamato added a new dimension, a different perspective when it comes to suffering in the land of Wano. Suffering is not just exclusive to the victims. Suffering is not exclusive to the oppressed. Oftentimes, suffering can be found on the side of the beneficiaries. Even though Yamato had absolutely nothing to do with what her father did, the fact here remains that she is still very much the offspring of Kaido, and with that came about a level of inner turmoil that ripped Yamato apart. It devastated her, and that's why she sought to become Kozuki Oden. If she is Oden, she is free. When Yamato says she wants to be Oden, she doesn't mean that in a literal sense. The girl doesn't want to be Kozuki Oden the man, but rather what she wants is to be what Kozuki Oden stood for. Kozuki Oden was known as a sort of protector of the land of Wano. He was a soul bounded by no limitations. He wanted to be free. Oden wanted to set sail and see all that the world had to offer. It is to be expected of a child of 8 years old to want to be the person who best personifies what they want to be in life. And I know that Yamato's whole I am Oden shit got really tired once we approached the end portion of the Wano arc, but it comes from such a pure place that I really can't be mad at it. Mind you, this is a 30-year-old woman who has no idea no concept of the world beyond Onigashima. It wouldn't surprise me if she suffers from some sort of personality disorder, and I guess that's what happens when you live under the wrathful thumb of an emperor of the sea. Yamato was a late addition to the Wano arc indeed, but she was also a great addition to the Wano arc. It's thanks to her connection to characters such as Ace being really hot and being really powerful. It's absolutely no surprise to anybody that Yamato quickly became a favorite amongst so many One Piece fans and non-fans alike apparently. Fun fact, in the global One Piece top 100 characters popularity poll that was conducted in 2020 and 2021, Yamato ranked 11th overall despite not even being present in the manga for a full calendar year at that point. That is insane. 11th overall. This character who was introduced out of the blue is several spots ahead of characters who we have been with and followed for hundreds of chapters. Red-haired Shanks, Doflamingo, Crocodile, Inaru. It's wild how far Yamato has skyrocketed in popularity, but at the same time, it's not surprising whatsoever. But regardless of how popular and how loved Yamato might be, there is still that aforementioned controversy that I was talking about at the start of the video. So what exactly is controversial regarding Yamato? As we all know, when Yamato first introduced herself, she was introduced as Kaido's son, but as we came to find out shortly after that, Yamato is actually female. This very predictably led to an uproar within the One Piece community, and us week-to-week readers found ourselves split on what to refer to Yamato as. There is the first party who simply refer to Yamato as the pronouns given in the manga, which is the male pronouns, and there's nothing at all wrong with that. There's the opposite party, which I myself belong to, that believe that eventually Yamato will come to realize that she is not Odin, that she is a female. The only reason she chooses to identify as male is because Odin is male. Yamato herself does not desire to be a man, she wants to be what Odin was. If Kozuki Odin was a bear, Yamato would probably want to be a bear. And if Kozuki Odin was female, then Yamato wouldn't even consider trying to be a male in the first place. This isn't an Okiku situation with Yamato where Okiku is in fact a transgender woman who identifies as a woman because she wants to be a woman. That is a completely different situation from Yamato wanting to be what the person she admires was. And yet, despite the story so clearly telling us that Yamato only wants to be what Odin was, if you were somebody who didn't refer to Yamato as the he, him pronouns, then you were a transphobe. You were transphobic. And that was a bit disingenuous to hear because, again, the story is telling us outright that Yamato wants to be Odin. She has no desire to be a man outside of that. Yamato is not a transgendered character. She is a 30-year-old woman with a deeply rooted personality disorder who's been trapped on an island for 20 years, and she has no concept of anything outside of herself beyond what she sees on said island. In Yamato's eyes, being male means being Odin, and it's really that simple. The fact that there was ever any controversy around this topic to begin with is rather ridiculous, and I think it's another case of people consuming what they want to read in the story instead of what is actually being presented within the story itself, which tends to happen a lot within the One Piece online community, oddly enough. But in this case, it was particularly aggravating because to be labeled a transphobe over a fictional character, and B, over somebody who has no real desire to be a man to begin with outside of wanting to be Odin, it was a very frustrating time for any discourse surrounding Yamato because it would all come back around to gender politics. Thankfully, that's all been sorted out, and we have official confirmation thanks to the One Piece viewer cards that Yamato is in fact a woman. And you anime onlys, you people who only watch the anime, you have no idea how fortunate you are not having to deal with this conversation on a week-to-week basis. Ugh. It was rough, trust me. Speaking of anime onlys, I'm about to kick you guys out of this video like your parents would kick you out of the room before they watch a sexy movie, because spoilers are ahead, and I care about my community, I care about my audience. I don't want you guys to be spoiled, so this is your one and only warning. If you are anime only, either turn off the audio for this video or leave the video altogether, because you're about to get spoiled and I don't want to do that to you. So from the moment that she was introduced in the story, Yamato's main motivation has been setting sail and seeing the world like Kozuki Oden, and she wanted to do this on the ship of the Straw Hat Pirates. All signs for so long pointed to Yamato being a Straw Hat pirate. It pointed to her joining the crew. It seemed so obvious. It seemed obvious from a mile away that Yamato was going to be a Straw Hat, and that was really exciting to those of us consuming this story week to week. A new Straw Hat, not only is she strong, not only is she gorgeous, but she's also the son of Kaido. Having an Emperor's offspring on our crew would do wonders for our clout, and that seemed to only drive from the fact that Yamato was going to join the crew. It seemed pretty set in stone at that point, until it wasn't. At the end of the Wano arc, after all the fighting was done, after the smoke had settled, Yamato made a decision, and her decision was not to go to sea, but instead to stay alongside Momonosuke in the Akazaya 9 to ensure that Wano would be protected for the time being from any outsiders. And while I do respect that level of introspection from Yamato, the execution of it was, if I'm being honest here, a little bit flat. For one, we don't see the conversation that Yamato has with the Straw Hats telling them of her decision until a couple of chapters later. In the initial chapter, this conversation is not seen, and all we have is Yamato stating to Momonosuke that she already told them that she wouldn't be joining them on their voyage. And at the time, that was absolutely crazy, because not only is Yamato not joining the crew, but the conversation she has with Luffy, we assume it's off screen until we eventually get it later. But in the initial chapter, chapter 1057, I believe, it very much felt like this was a split decision made by Yamato, and there's no room to really cope with the fact that a character who's been with us for the last 50 chapters won't be joining us on the final voyage that we all assumed that she would. It felt like all that build up, all that hype to her joining the crew was ultimately for nothing, and that was a very bitter pill to swallow at the end of an otherwise really good arc. In spite of whatever personal grievances I might have with the Yamato character, I am really grateful that Oda introduced her, because she was a big highlight for me and others during the Onigashima raid. Yamato's presence added so much to this arc that her not joining the crew, even though it is not ideal, it's small in the grand scheme of things, because there is a much bigger story to tell with Yamato, not only in Wano itself, but going forward for the remainder of the story. There is no doubt in my mind that Oda has big plans in mind for Yamato, and whatever comes about that, we're just gonna have to wait and see. But that's all for today's video. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure you hit the like button on your way out. And if you're new to my channel, welcome to the kingdom, and make sure you subscribe. When you subscribe, you are helping me help you, because when you subscribe to this channel, you are guaranteed some of the best damn One Piece content on the market. And I don't say that lightly, it's the truth. I don't make the rules, I just say the facts. I am the one, I am the only, the Dark King Adonis, and I'll catch you lovely people on the flip side.